Alright guys, so we have 3 red blinks, 4 green blinks. So let's open this up and see what's going on. Alright, so 3 red pressure switch stuck open. Seems clear. It's also clear. Let me check and see if these switches are getting stuck. Alright guys, so I had to redo the audio because you could hardly hear anything. But anyways, I'll tell you what the breakdown is. I have 2 switches, 0.67, 0.2. Okay. I have enough draft at this point. The inducer is ramping up. I've checked the venting outside. The venting is clear. The drains are clear. At this point, the unit is modulating up and shutting off randomly. Okay, the draft does get to 0.8 and the switch is eventually closing. But even though the switch closes 45 seconds later, it's shutting off. Now the inducer is making a noise, so that's suspect. And the other thing that I noticed is we have a pressure sensor in there, which is kind of throwing me off at this point. Alright, so it's still going. My draft's getting a little higher. Not liking the sound of this motor at all. So I'm thinking I'm going to put this under the recommendations. And it just shut off. Alright, so I'm tapped into all switches. My high side's open right now, respectively. My low side is closed. If we switch over to my draft's still okay. Okay. That's why the low one is doing okay and closing. This will slowly modulate up. And when it does, I'm going to watch and see if my switch opens at any time. So I'm going to keep an eye on this. Alright guys, this switch should be closing soon. It's starting to ramp up. I'm just going to watch this. I'm going to check my drain. Alright, so that should be closing shortly. So that switch should definitely be closed, and it's not closing yet. Culprit right there, guys. There, now it's closing. Took a while. Shut off. Wow. This is showing me 14 volts. What in God's name? Okay, I'm gonna jump out these switches, see what's going on. Alright guys, so I'm checked the drain. The drain's fine. I'm able to get through it. Now I'm tapped into the low side switch. I'm just going to check my draft on that. It's 0.8. It should only be 0.2. So we got enough draft on there. Now it's going to 35% firing rate. So we'll keep an eye on that. Low switch is closed. High switch is open because of the draft. And we'll keep an eye on that. Oh my god, guys, this one's busting my balls, man. Alright, so ramping down. That switch should open. I don't know why it keeps cutting out. There, switch is open. Alright, so I'll just tell you where I stand. So all my draft is always good. My switch is closed. Now the only thing I notice about my high switch is that it's taking a little bit longer to close. So we might have a culprit there. So I'm going to jump that switch in a bit and see if it stays on. Okay guys, I think I got it now. So this switch is closing much higher than 0.67. So it was not closing when it should have. And then the unit would shut off. So what I did was, right around the time it got to 0.65 or so, I jumpered out the switch and it stayed on. So I'm going to order a switch. Let me see what I got in the van. Alright guys, I'm leaving now. So that was it. Delayed close on the switch. Everything's time related. So if the inducer is ramping up and it hits 0.67 and that switch doesn't close, it'll keep trying and then eventually it stops. So what I was able to do is just jumper it until I noticed that the switch closed, and then it'll stay on. So we just have a bad switch. So I'll order it for her and get out of here. Alright guys, here's the this is the next day. So I got the new switch in. What I'm showing you here is the draft is pulling up. This is the Testo app, and it's starting to approach the 0.67 draft that is needed to close the switch. As you can see, it's 26.3, so that's showing that the switch is open, and my draft is currently 0.55 and creeping up. So we're just going to watch it here as it rises and it gets to the point of closing. It's 0.57, 0.58, almost there. So I believe you could have a 10% plus or minus on this switch here, so it's 0.67 and rising. This call was an odd one, very odd, and after this little clip here, you're going to see me at the end of my night in my van driving after a 14-hour, actually it was 15-hour shift. So I was exhausted, like I mean real tired. So just a side note that this switch I ended up putting in, and after putting it in, it modulated fully to 100% and never failed. It was just so weird that the switch prior to this one would close at 0.8, and the unit would stay on for another minute and then shut off. So it was really hard to troubleshoot. So here we are, 0.69. 0.7. I mean, it should be closing any second now, and there we go, it closed. So it closed earlier than the other one. The other one was closing at like 0.8, so it's like a delayed close. And this newer switch would close early, and sure enough, the unit on its own would modulate. So the only way I got this lady going, okay, was on the previous switch that was closing early. I would have to jump out the switch as it approached 0.67 and then hold it there for a bit, and then I would remove the jumper when I heard the click of the switch closing mechanically, and then it would fire up to 100%. And so what I did was I jumped it out, removed the jumper, got her heat, shot it up to 24 Celsius, which is like 73, and the next day I came back with this switch. Really odd. So here we are to the clip where I look like I've been working too much. Wow, what a long day, guys. Hoser is hosed out big time. So a couple funny stories here. Anyways, that one that I just left was a big pain in the ass, and I'll explain why. So when I got there, it was giving me a pressure switch not closing. That furnace modulates very slow. So the way it fires is it starts off at 75 or 70% firing rate. Then it drops down to 35, and then it slowly modulates and creeps up. So the Venner motor slowly creeps up in draft, the gas pressure creeps up, the blower motor creeps up. Well, I don't see that damn furnace a lot. It's a York. Piece of shit in my opinion. So when I got there, the switch telling me it was not closing. So when that bad boy fired up, my pressure switches were closing, and decided to tee into it. First I teed into the switch, and I was showing enough draft. So I had two switches, 0.67 and 0.2. Well, when it first fired up at 70%, I was getting like an inch water column. Anyways, so then I thought, okay, I got enough draft, and sorry, I can't even think right now. That's how fucking tired I am. Pardon my French. I checked my switches. First, I checked for continuity. Venter motor ramped up. Weep, no problem. I sucked in and out. They closed. No issues whatsoever. And anyways, the furnace would drop to 35, and then it would ramp up slowly and eventually just shut off. And you know, it was weird because it would just shut off and not do anything else. Checked my venting, checked my drains, everything's clear. My draft is still good. Anyways, I decided to use both meters and check my switches. I noticed on the 0.67 switch that as the furnace modulated up to 0.65, 0.67 to where it was supposed to close, well, that goddamn thing didn't close. But it would eventually close and the furnace would stay on. So it would close at like 0.73, 0.74, maybe 0.8. I don't know if I was tired or what, but I saw it close, so I thought, okay, everything's good, the switch is working. And then after it closed, I don't know, maybe a minute later, 45 seconds, it would change, it would vary, the furnace would shut off. So I thought, okay, what the hell's going on here? They have a pressure sensor in there that threw me off, that takes into account combustion air. And I've heard of guys having issues with that. So, you know, that was causing me trouble. Now, the pain in the ass with this furnace is I couldn't, maybe I could have put it in test mode, but that wouldn't have solved anything because it would have fired right up to 100%. At least I think. Hold on, hold that thought. Sorry guys, I had a coworker call. Ugh. Anyways, so don't know where I left off, but that furnace would modulate and it would creep up and the switch would close and it would stay on for a bit. So you think the switch is okay, which was really screwed up. So I decided, you know what, let's just jump this switch at 0.67 water column. So I jumped that, and pardon my French, I jumped that switch, and next thing I knew, it would modulate up to an inch, almost pretty much to full fire. I'd remove the jumper and the whole furnace would stay on. So I stopped it, I let it run again without the jumper. Sure enough, it would shut off. So I determined, sorry, I'm driving in a storm right now and I've been working for 13 hours. So I jumped that switch, so anyways, I let it run, it failed again, I jumped it, and it ran fine. It's the switch. So even though the switch eventually closes at 0.8, for some reason, even though that switch doesn't open, it shuts off. And the only way to keep it on is to jump it at the very moment that 0.65 goes. I don't know why. If you guys out there are York dealers and you've worked on this, you can let me know. But I tried it 3 times after that. And keep in mind, every time I shut that off, I had to wait like 10-15 minutes for it to modulate. I did that like 15 times. The call took me forever. Anyways, so the way I left it was jumpered out, got it to full fire, cranked the stat. We're going back with the switch tomorrow because at that point of the night,
I still had 4 calls. And, you know, I gotta get moving, man. So, I didn't have a switch in the van to put in there. Really weird. So, delayed close on the switch. Furnace would shut off. Jumper out, working fine. So, I'm gathering once I go tomorrow and get a proper switch that does close at 0.65, it'll be good to go. Anyways, thanks for the guys watching. Today was one hell of a day. I'm on my way home. I'm not taking any more calls. I'm done. Hoser is out. Like, subscribe, leave a comment. See you on the next one, baby.
Like a bird on a tree, I'm just sitting here. I got